A couple of days ago, I asked you guys to upload a couple of your replays. So we got a couple of lap times in here. Actually, we got more than a couple of lap times. And I believe that we can summarize all of this in just 3 replays. So I will analyze 3 replays and I will, well, in the end, I will make a conclusion about each and every single one of them. So we do have a 56.9, we do have like a 54.6. So I think a good starting point, and well, usually a good starting point is just about the 54.9, and here it's a 55.3. So I will go with the 54.9 because I already watched this video and I already know a couple of things about this one. So the basic point is usually speed. We will have a reference, and I'm just going to try to point out what is, well, what actually seems to be the issue with this one. And if we just have a little look at what's going on here, the counter steering assistance is off, but active stability management, or ASM, is on. Of course, we can notice that he used a lot of track in here, but it's not exactly done in the right way. Okay, I know this is a GTR, but we can just stop it here. So it's still braking in the straight line. It's not going to reach the apex. What is missing in this one? It's missing that from the braking point to the actual turning point, there wasn't a subtle change in direction. Everything was going on too quickly. So if you're trying to handle Group 4 cars, I know sometimes you're trying to be aggressive, but try to smoothen out your steering inputs. And that's going to help massively when it comes to steering and steering it at the right way and at the right time. So we will move on here. Okay, ASM is really not helping us here. Braking is going in. That was fine. Acceleration going in, but it was going on too quickly up to 100%, and then it just had to go down. Why did this happen? Why is it the way it is? And we need to go back just to help analyze and understand what was going on in here. So braking point, turning point, going over the curbs, this is the problem. The car went too wide. To clarify all of the situation, he was taking it corner by corner basis, or on corner by corner basis, instead of looking at the whole section. So the point that I would like to make is that don't look at corners, look at sections. And that's exactly why he took this corner a little bit too narrow, which in the end resulted the car going too wide. And instead of just easing off a little bit, he put the power down all the way to 100%, which in the end didn't give him a good angle for the next corner. And of course, you can see here that he just missed and didn't really use a lot of track on the right, which of course he should be using. Okay, braking and then starting to turn in, which is usually not a good thing here, but okay, this is a little bit of advanced. I need to leave something for later here. So acceleration, let's say that it was okay, but I think the critical mistake here was the turning point. The turning point and not actually using a lot of track here. You can see that he's not using the whole width of the curb, and usually you have to place one tire onto the curb to get more rotation. And you can see the steering inputs just going in too late. So the curb was the actual turning point. And if we go back a little bit, we can start to see the pattern in here, and you can start to see the pattern developing. So now the car is facing straight, but it actually should be facing the other way around. It should be facing to the left. So touching a bit of a curb, and now here it already should be going into the corner, not out of the corner. And now it's basically just missing the curb, missing the apex. You're not carrying the speed, and you're just missing the apex, which is usually the point where you should be aiming for, because the curb eventually will get you that rotation. So one mistake after another, and as I said before, it's usually like a domino effect. If you miss your entry, you will most likely miss your exit. And here again, missing the acceleration point, not actually using the most track on the right. So here, that's also one mistake. But okay, we're gonna go back, or now we're gonna go into the next corner, which was, I believe this was okay. I would suggest a bit of, I would say a little bit earlier on the power, and also a little bit earlier on the entry, but apart from that, it was okay. But now we need to have a look at the speed. So you can see that the car is, well, it's hitting the curb, but you can see that he still has the ability to turn in more, and he still has a lot more track, and the speed of the car isn't really there because the braking And of course, the acceleration wasn't there. So the braking took so long. In between, there was this point where he was just coasting, and then in the end, it was eventually not picking up the speed because the car was too slow. So here again, too much braking coming in. You can see at this point you should only be using just about 20 to 25% of the braking, if I would say if so. So 25 is maybe just about enough. And again, not really taking the right line. You should be much more to the right. And again, we're looking at the fourth gear, and he now doesn't have the angle for the next corner. As I said before, look at sections, don't look at corners. So now going in here, third gear, you can see how wide did he get, and all of a sudden you're onto the marbles, you're losing traction, and there is simply no way of getting around it. So third gear, and if you want to get a really good lap time, you need to cut this corner. You just need to go over the grass and then onto the curb. He kind of I would say that he took a very safe line, which in the end wasn't exactly the line that should be taken. And of course here, I gotta say it's too late on the turning in point, and now you can see also the ABS is activating, which it shouldn't be here, and it's just missing the corner. So it's like a lot of things that happen at the same time. But how to avoid this issue, how to actually avoid all of this, and how not to brake that much. So everything starts from this point. So he had to pick up the speed a little bit sooner. The line should have been more to the left, over the curb, and then when you're going over the curb, you can get to the apex, or you can get to the first part of the corner a little bit sooner, which is usually this curb on the right. And then again, on the curb, you should start to turn in slightly sooner. Of course, in the end, we'll see the reference, and I'm just going to explain what happened here. And again, not really using the whole width of the track, and then again, using too much of the track here. So you should be very close to the apex, because now you're using the curb to rotate the car, not using the road here. And of course the marbles are just going to make you understeer even more. So I think the acceleration, the technique to use the acceleration is just about fine, but it's just the lines. So if you don't have the right lines, you're pretty much losing a ton of speed, and that's essentially what I would like to explain in this one. So okay, we pointed out a couple of things, and I have to say, racing lines, don't look at corner by corner. Don't look at this as just one corner at the corner. It's more of a section. I think we can definitely summarize this one as look at sections, don't brake too long, try to carry the speed and have speed as a reference, and take the right lines. And essentially, if you don't even push that hard and just take the right lines, I think this lap time can go down by even maybe at 6 to 7 tenths easily. Okay. Now I would like to go into a little bit of a faster lap, just to show you what the faster guys do, and eventually we can kind of help to understand what's going on. Okay, now I took a 54.0 and just let's see what's going to happen in here. I think a couple of those issues will just be gone, especially taking the right lines. And yeah, one thing that I wanted to suggest is be careful about the acceleration and do a gradual acceleration instead of a quick one, because this car can slide. Okay, braking point fine. I believe the turning point isn't. So we're looking at this, the car slides a little bit too much, and then in the end you can start to see the pattern developing in here. So braking in here, and just the turning was too sudden. I'm gonna go once again into this replay and we will have a little look at what's going on, but I do have to say, be very gentle with your turning inputs. You can see that it's like it's smashing to the right, which is unsettling the car. So the steering inputs should be very gradual with this car. Otherwise, you might lose the traction, and then in the end, the acceleration just isn't there. So here, reference point, good turn. I would say not exactly good turning point, but it was okay. So in the end, if we move on to this section, you can see that the braking point is fine, but the turning, again, should be a little bit more gradual. You can see that it's like it's flying to the right. It doesn't have that gradual increase. It's like turning in too quickly, which is resulting in unwanted understeer, and then eventually you're just losing the traction of the front tires, which is again slowing down the car, and then again it's taking too much for the car to accelerate, because the acceleration and that period of acceleration becomes too, I would say, too unsettled in my opinion. So it's really difficult to start steering in like that. So you can see once again, this section, I know it's pretty difficult to get it right. And okay, this one, he actually got it right, but missed his braking point slightly. So I would suggest, for now that I'm seeing, I would just suggest take it a bit easier. And now this corner, I think this is where a lot of people make mistakes. And you can see where the car is going right now. It's going straight, but it's actually going straight into the marshals. But instead of that, it should be lined up. It should be lined up with this line. So instead of having this line, it should be here. And it should be pointing out there. Like our points are very, very different. So instead of looking at the marshals and pointing out at the marshals, you need to be pointing out straight. Otherwise, the car will have too much force onto the front right tire, which is going to be, once again, very, very difficult for the car to turn in as it is. So definitely at this point, I see it's going to be once again the same thing. I'm just going through the replay. I'm just trying to understand exactly his driving style. You can see pointing out at the marshals, and now the turning is going to be too quick. So I would fix two things. I would line up the car with the line right there, and then I would start turning in very, very subtly. Like very, very, okay, yeah, it's really hard to explain this one because it's a very aggressive driving style. So it just needs to be a little bit more subtle, smooth, in my opinion. So not like aggressive turning points. And you can see here, once again, we are missing the turning point. Okay, this was a bad connection in between the braking point and the turning point. So whenever you have a corner, for example, like this one, you need to have a braking point, which is the 50 here. But then again, you need to be pointing out in the right way, at the right time, at the right spot. But also, that spot should be your turning in reference. So you got the marshals, you got this point, which I'm usually highlighting this in my videos. And already here, you need to start turning in, but start turning in smoothly, not aggressively. Otherwise, you will lose the back of the car and the front of the car will start understeering quite a lot. So it's not really good for the car. So again, here you can see that he missed that reference point going in too wide. And now again, he lost too much time on the entry, and then it's absolutely no way of getting it back. So I think there is going to be a bit of a problem going downhill if he keeps that aggressive approach. It was actually okay, but again, I think it should be a little bit better. Braking is fine here. Braking is okay. Taking the right line here, I think she could have maybe gone a little bit more over the right line. Okay. Okay, that's nice. That's nice. Accelerate. Now accelerate. Go, 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 go. And again, no one is really using this curb much. I noticed that. No one is really using this curb much. So again, the turning in points should be a little bit sooner, but okay, lift it, that's fine, that's absolutely fine. Let's see if he's going to turn in the right way. Just about okay. I would maybe start turning in a little bit sooner, and of course, touch the curb. When you touch the curb, everything is just going to be so much smoother because the curb will rotate the car. And again, we're going to cross the finish line, and it's a 54.0. So I hope this gives you kind of a good indication of what should be changed and what, of course, needs to be changed depending on the level. So for example, in this one, I noticed that it's a very aggressive driving style. So just smoothing out the driving style and smoothing out the inputs. Apart from that, I would really focus on hitting the braking point and then hitting the other reference point in the corner, which is usually your turning point. And then if you can just change those two things, your lap time is just going to be so much better. The lines are here. Maybe, I would say maybe they need to be improved slightly. But again, it's 1.5 or 1.6 seconds of the world lead. So it's not the worst. It's okay. But definitely smoothing out the steering wheel. That's it. And once again, I gotta thank you guys for sharing these replays so I can analyze them. So thank you very much for that. If you're new to the channel, of course, you can click the like button, or you might even want to subscribe. So let's jump into another lap from Susie. I think this one was actually a pretty decent lap. So 100, usually a good reference point. Turning in, that's okay. Just a bit too subtle. Okay. From the first braking point, I can notice that it's maybe too subtle. So in between that aggressive approach that we had in the last one and this one, I think it's going to be okay. So reference point once again here, turning in, but you can see that it's a very very good line when it comes to just pointing out the car in the right way. But what is missing here? Braking. You can see how it's not very gradual. It's not going from 100 all the way down to 0 in like a gradual way, but it has steps. So for example, 100 going down here to about 40, 45, and then just releasing. Okay, I guess that's the driving style. I'm not going to complain too much about it, but it's one of those things where you can carry more speed through the corner. If you just gradual all the way down to 0 instead of just having these steps, it can definitely help. Okay, going here. Okay, a little bit of braking, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. There we go. It's going to be entry into the corner, and again, and again, and again. Okay, acceleration is pretty good. I loved it. So it's already really good. And here, this is the point where I would say, once again, start turning in slightly sooner. So point out the car a little bit more to the right. You can even use the curb to get more speed and to get more space on the right. And then you can see this is the mistake that I was thinking about. So yeah, it's the braking point. You can use the curb. You don't have to use the curb, but I do highly recommend it. Turning needs to start slightly sooner. When I say slightly sooner, I just mean by maybe 2 to 3 meters, not much. And then again, if you start turning at the right time, you don't have to do that much braking. And this is what's slowing down the car in this corner. And this is what's causing the understeer. So it's not the turning, it's nothing else. It's actually really good, but just the turning point and the initial turning point resulted in too much braking, and then this amount of braking slowed down the car too much, and in the end didn't use the curb. Okay, use the curb, but very late. So I would suggest using more of that curb to rotate the car and accelerate slightly sooner. Of course, having the reference is always a good thing. Here, 50, is it going to be 50? It's 50. I would maybe start braking a little bit later, but okay. Once again, I'm going to go back to another story. You can see that turning in starts too late, which is not good on this track. I noticed that a couple of times, and I can see that really fast guys always do a very early approach. They ride the curb, rotate the car in that second gear, and then power out of the corner. You can see that it's very wide, it's slowing down the car too much, and then again, acceleration over the curb is just resulting in unwanted oversteer, and it's kind of unsettling the car. So I would definitely suggest starting to turn in sooner. So here, 50. Let's see the brakes. Brakes going all the way up to 100%. Let's release them. Let's release the brakes before the corner. Okay, that's nice. Acceleration, really good. Turning in, a little bit too late. So that's one point that I wanted to say. Okay, if you're dealing with this corner in this way, you already need to start turning in here. You just follow the lines. You can see the marks on the road. Those are really good references. So you can see that the car is almost going straight. It's almost going straight, not straight, but the turning needs to start, so I would say a little bit sooner, and of course a little bit more aggressive in this corner. And then once again, this is resulting in the car that's not really touching the apex that soon, and then it's rotating the car too much because the car is not up to speed, and of course touching the curb while accelerating unsettles the car. The line is okay. That's why she had to lift here, because the car was unsettled. And that's exactly what I was talking about. It all came from one initial point, and that's the starting point of each corner. It's either not positioning the car in the right way, or it's not turning in the right way, and this was a combination of both. So the turning didn't really start at the right time, and then acceleration was done on the curb. And this car, I know it's very unstable over the curb, which resulted in unwanted oversteer, and then she just had to lift at this point. So that was the result in this one. Okay, nice line through this corner. I would maybe go a little bit too aggressive, or a little bit more aggressive in this one, just taking the right lines. Okay, second gear, third gear on the way out. Let's see what happens. Nice. Let's use the curb. Using the curbs, but I would maybe even start to accelerate slightly sooner and use even more of this curb. And then again, what I see with a lot of guys, it's this cornering. So if you don't use the curb there on the left, it's not going to give you a good line here. But okay, let's say this one is good. But now carrying too much speed, pushing her wide, a little bit too wide, and now she doesn't have the angle for this corner. And that's exactly not using the curb to rotate the car. So yeah, okay, everything starts from the beginning once again. If we just have a little look at what needs to be improved in here, also, of course, we need to have a reference, and references are always really good. And it's always good to compare your lap times with the best guys out there. So you can see that turning in, you should be in the middle of the track and already start to turn in, just to kind of close down the gap there. And now it's just the car isn't on the curb, it's just getting pushed wide. It doesn't matter how much you turn, and if you start turning in more, the car is just going to be pushed out even more. So in the end, that's a 53.7. I think this is a fairly decent result considering all of the mistakes and all of the things that could be improved. I think this is a well, as I said before, this is a decent lap. It's a, well, it's a pretty decent result, but I hope I kind of summarized all of the things that should be improved with your lap times. Of course, we had some really, really good lap times. And I mean, it's really hard to find a 10th or maybe 2/10. And that's exactly why I made a video about Motec and how to use Motec in Gran Turismo. And I think that one is going to be pretty useful. So I'm just going to put it down in the description. So guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I really hope that, well, this maybe give you a little insight of what I'm thinking while I'm driving. So once again, thank you very much for watching the video, and until the next time, bye.